Hi everyone, in this video we will be exploiting Windows XP machine using Metasploit. So in Windows XP, in our virtual setup we will have a Windows XP machine, and in this Windows XP machine we have this RPC service running. So that RPC service is used for communication, and now in this RPC there is a vulnerability, and that vulnerability actually can be exploited with the help of sending malicious RPC request. So for example, here in Windows XP, this is the vulnerability, and hacker knows that there is vulnerability, and then this can send a malicious RPC request to this Windows machine, and with that an attacker can execute arbitrary code, and by executing that code the attacker will have access of victim's machine. So just because of this vulnerability they can access it, and this vulnerability is also available in systems like Windows 2000 and also Windows 2003 as well. I mentioned that information is made available for information and educational purpose only, and we are not supposed to use it for any illegal or malicious activity. And now to demonstrate this idea of exploiting this Windows XP machine, I have Windows XP which I have installed in my previous video, which I'll put the description in the description section. I'm the link in the description section. And then we also have Kali Linux machine that will act as an attacking machine. So this Windows XP is victim and at Kali Linux is an attacker machine. Now, first of all, I'm going to actually in Windows XP machine, I'm going to turn off this firewall. I want to also show this because there are some ways by which we can avoid, or we can avoid this firewall. We'll be learning about those, right? But at the moment we are going to simply in control panel and then security center, and the security center you can see this firewall is on. I'm going to turn it off, but you might be asking that then who will be actually turning it off? Yes, nobody will turn it off. No sensible person will be turning it off. But we have different ways to even avoid this firewall. We have certain evasions method which we'll be learning in our future videos, but for today's demonstration I'm going to turn it off. And once we are done with that, then we will go to our attacking machine, and from our attacking machine you see here we have to launch the terminal, and from this also you can get a feeling that how much important this Windows firewall is. So we should never turn it off. Anyway, we have different methods to actually avoid this Windows firewall as, because I mean with that, even if the Windows firewall is running, we can still be able to scan the system, and we'll be able to exploit the system as well. So anyway, with this basic setup, now we are in this Kali Linux machine. And in this Kali Linux machine, let's say we want to find out, or we want to run a scan. So for that we will be running Nmap, and to run this Nmap we need an IP address of Windows XP machine. So for that we are going here, and if we run cmd, and if it's cmd we have IP config command, and this has given the IP address that 192.168.66.157. So we can find actually these IP addresses using ARP scan, which I also have discussed in some other video. We can also use the Nmap for detail, but at the moment, let's say by using some method, we also have the IP address of our target machine. And now we are going to run a scan against this target machine. So we want to see the ports and their services, and also the version numbers on that target machine. So after this, we are going to give the IP address. So that is Nmap, and we want to get the service numbers as well of the services which are running there. So for that I have used this option -sv and verbose mode, and now I'm giving the IP address of our target, that is 192.168.66.157, and we press enter. So it may take some time, and after some time it will show us that what ports and what services are running on our target machine, which is actually Windows XP machine. And you can see here it says that there are certain ports which are open, like this port number 135, port number 139, port number 445 TCP, which is actually Microsoft DS. The DS stands for Directory Service, and port 445 is mostly used by SMB. SMB stands for Server Message Block, and Server Message Block is used for sharing resources like sharing files and printers. So now in this service there was a vulnerability. So these days actually rarely somebody uses XP, but in that version actually there was some weaknesses here in this one. And to find out whether this port is really running a vulnerable service, for that we can run a vulnerability scan, or we can enumerate using Nmap script. And for that we will be running some script against the target machine, and to run this we have a command that is nmap, and then we say specify the port number. So I'm at the moment interested in looking at this port number, that is 445, whether the service running against this port is vulnerable or not. So for that I'm running this script. So I'm asking nmap to run this script, and the script of this vuln category, and then I'm going to specify the IP address 192.168.66.157. So it means the script of this category will be run against this target machine, and it will give us whether this service running on this port is vulnerable or not, right? And in the end we can also give one additional option. We can use that minus capital PN, and with this option actually this will disable the host discovery. It will only be scanning port, or it will only be port scanning. So minus PN and then press enter, and now this has started scanning the target machine to find out whether the service is vulnerable or not. Maybe I should have actually maybe increase this size, but now I don't think that this will make any difference. But I'm going to increase the size of window that we should be able to see better results. But at the moment I think this will not make any difference, but it may take some time. And yes, it's there, and yes, we have here, and you can see this is the result of this command which we just use here. And here's this port state and service. So this is the port state is open, and service is this Microsoft DS service. And now it is host script results, the what is vulnerable here. So here we can see this is remote code execution vulnerability in Microsoft SMB version 1 server. So that is vulnerable, state is vulnerable, and the IDE of CVE is this ID, and risk factor is high, and it's a critical remote code execution vulnerability exists in Microsoft SMB version 1. So this is the version which is we have on this Windows XP machine, and says that this is the disclosure date for that vulnerability, and then this is SMB vulner MS08067. This is the vulnerability which is vulnerable, and now it says that Microsoft Windows system vulnerable to remote code execution, and IDE for this is this CVE, vulnerable CVE. This is the ID for this, and you can see the server service is in Microsoft Windows 2000 SP4, Service Pack 4, XP, SP2, SP3, a Service Pack 3 server. So these all are maybe affected machines. Now we have also been given the references. We can give we can find out further details on these URLs about this vulnerability. And now to find out further information that whether we have any module in Metasploit which we can use against this vulnerability, because we have discussed in our previous video that Metasploit is a framework which can be used to test, validate, and exploit vulnerabilities. So we found that yes, there is vulnerability on the target XP system, but we are interested to find out whether we have any module available in Metasploit which we can use against the target Windows XP machine. So now at the moment we have this IDE, the CVE ID, this one. Okay, so for this I'm going to copy this CVE. Now to find out whether this Metasploit has certain module in it or not, we are going to start Metasploit. So for this we are running this MSF console, MSF CONSOLE, MSF console, and press enter. It will take some time and it will load the Metasploit console for us, and that will be a framework, and we will try to find out if there is any module which we can use against the vulnerability which we found in Windows XP machine. It may take some time. We are waiting for this to start. Now this has started this Metasploit framework for us, and we have already discussed that in this Metasploit we have these many modules, and these modules are classified as exploits, auxiliary encoder, and these all things. But now we want to find out any modules by which we can actually exploit this one. So we are going to search, and then we are going to paste this. What was that? Not paste, search, and what was the IDE, CVE ID. So we are going to use this CVE ID here, copy selection, and then we are going to search this. So this is the common vulnerability and exposure. So by this ID we are finding out any module which is available which we can use against that vulnerability. And you can see as a result of this command, you can see as a result of this search command, it says that it has found some matching module. This is the name of the module. This was disclosed on this date, and rank is great. It means that's very good exploit which we can use. And then we can also check it whether this is working or not. And then this the description. That description says that MS08 Microsoft Server Service relative path stack corruption. So this is the description of that Metasploit, and this is actually give the code or CVE, or maybe they show actually numbers. So MS stands for Microsoft, 08 is the year, and I think this is the number of patch in that year for that exploit. So now it says interact with simply by name or index, for example info0. So if you want to use this exploit, then one method is that we just simply copy and paste this complete module's name here, and we can say we want to use this module. So I have actually copied and pasted this module, which is actually an exploit module, or we can actually use this simply reference number, which is 0. So I have copied and pasted the whole module name, and I'm going to say use this exploit and press enter. And now it says that no payload configure, defaulting to Windows Metasploit reverse TC. And now once we have selected exploit, so now you can see we are actually in the exploit mode which we have selected. Now we need to set some options here. Now to launch an attack or to exploit it, we need to set some options, and for this we have a command that is show options, which we need to configure, we need to set. So when we run this command, you can see as a result of this command we have this module options which we need to set. So this is the name of the option, and this is the current setting, this is required, and this is description. It says that name option is rhost, that stands for remote host, or the target machine, which in our case is Windows XP. And for this we don't have any current setting, but this is the option which is required, and description is the target host. And the second option name is R port, that is remote port, and the current value is 445, and this is also required. So we already have this is required, but we already have its value. In the same way, the third option SMB pipe, that is also required, but we have already value for it. So now these are the options. Only this option is missing. We need to set this option to use this exploit, and then we have these options for payload. So as we saw that by default this payload has been selected, and for this payload these are the options, and we see that for these all options whatever is required that already have been given some current setting. So you can see XA So for this is the current setting and this is required. And L host, this is the local host. Local host means the attacking machine, which is Kali Linux machine, and this is the local port where the attacking machine is listening. So that's the port on which it is listening. So for payload, we have this option missing. So we are going to set this option. So with this, for this, we have a command that's set and then R hosts. And then we give the IP address of our target, that is 192.168.66.157. Press enter, and I can see with this we have set this host. And you can also see like show options. You can run the same command, and now you can see here we have set the remote host as well. Okay, now we have set the options for the exploit, and options for payloads are already selected there. But what if we want to use some other payloads? So do we have other payload options which we can use with this exploit? So exploit has already been selected, and we want to see that do we have some other payload. So for that we have a command that is show payloads. So with this show payloads, it will display all the payloads or the possible payloads which we can use with this exploit. So now we can see here this they are numbered here. So for 150 number is reflective injection, that is reverse TCP stagger with UUID support. So in this way we can find and read about all the payloads which are possible. Maybe if we go at the start, we can have the list like start show payloads. You can see here this is payload number 0. So and here we can see the name of the payload, this is the disclosure date, and then the rank is normal, check, and description. So maybe because of this window size, maybe I can't see now all, but you can maybe increase the window size and you can see all the information here about all these payloads. And here like for example, if you see it number 7, that is the payload Windows DLL inject bind hidden. So you can see further information about that. And let's see, we want to use a simple Windows shell payload, and for that we have a reverse Windows payload, and this is somewhere we have reverse TCP, and we will be given the Windows shell when we'll be exploiting a Windows XP machine from this Kali Linux machine. And that's very simple. So for this we will be selecting this one, that is the Windows shell reverse TCP, right? So we are using this payload. I'm going to copy this payload and then press enter, and I'm back at this module prompt. Now I'm saying set payload, the payload which I have copied. So I'm going to paste that payload. So that is this one. We copied it, and now you can see the payload. Oh, sorry, set payload. It's not selected. So payloads, and then we have to paste selection. Set payload. Maybe we didn't copy it. I need to copy that one again. So that is, I think, this one, this, and then we're going to copy selection, and then we go, sorry for that, set payload and then paste selection. So this is the payload we want to select, and then we press enter, and I can see this payload is Windows shell reverse TCP. We have changed the payload as well. And then we want to see also we will have to see that what options are required to use this payload, because if we want to use it, then we have to use set all the options required to use that payload. And for that we again have this command, that is show options. And this show options, we have first the module options, and then we have the payload options. So for this payload we need these options set. So L host, local port, and XA fun. So you can see they already have some values, and now it means we all, but not in all of the cases we will have these all payloads set. In some of the payloads when we'll be using, maybe we need to configure, we need to give these some values to these these options, but at the moment these values are set. And also one more option, that is target, what target we want to select. So I just want to show you that what target means. So here by default this shows that automatic targeting has been selected, but let's say can we see what targets options are there. So I'm going to use show target option, and with the show target option you can see we have different platforms, different targets: Windows 2000, Windows XP Service Pack, Windows 2003, and you can see all the details. So we can specify that which target we want to attack, but at the moment this is selected as automatic targeting, so we are not going to change it, and this will automatically detect the target machine for us. Now we are all set, and final step is to exploit this vulnerability, because now we have selected the um, we have selected the exploit, we have selected the payload, and now we just have to run a command that will run the exploit. And for that we have a command that is exploit, and also we have a command that is run. So we are going to use maybe the command that is exploit. So this will start exploiting Windows XP machine. And now you can see here this is started reverse TCP handler on this. So this is our attacking machine, Kali Linux machine. And now you can see here automatically detecting the target. So this is the option we selected. And then it says fingerprint. Windows XP is the target machine, service pack 3, language English. And then we have selected this target, and then attempting to trigger the vulnerability, and finally we can see that command shell session 1 open, and from this machine, which is Kali Linux, to this machine, which is actually Windows XP, and this also shows the time at which this session was open. And after this you can see this shows the shell banner. So you can see here it shows that Microsoft XP version, this is running on the target machine, and we have the Windows shell available here. So now we have actually exploited Windows XP machine, and we have the command prompt of this machine, and you can see here this is 157. So now we have the CLI here of Windows, and to confirm it, maybe we can run a command that is ipconfig first. So ipconfig shows the IP address of the target machine. You can see this is at the moment, even though we are the Kali Linux machine, but we can see the IP address of Windows machine. Right, so now we have exploited it, and maybe someone more interesting command that is system information. We can also run this system information to verify that we are there on Windows machine. So I'm running this command that is system info, and then we press enter, and as a result of this command you can see it is giving us all the information about the target machine. So that is the machine host name is newbie something, operating system is this is the version, who is the manufacturer of that's the manufacturer is Microsoft. You can see standalone workstation, and yeah, so you can see all the information about the target machine using this system info command, and you can see we are in Windows there. So that's it for today's video, and I wanted to show you that one example of using Metasploit, and hopefully this will be useful for some of you. And thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you in my other videos. We'll be discussing more about ethical